Hey guys, good to be with you today. Hope you're doing well. Today I want to tell you a really interesting story from the Bible. It's a true story, like all the stories in the Bible. And this story is about King David, all right? So basically, David was king over all of Israel, and for the most part, he was a really good king. He's probably the best king they ever had in the Old Testament. But one day, David's son, whose name was Absalom, decided he wanted to be king instead. And so what Absalom did was he got all these people to follow him and he formed this huge army. And he was going to go attack his own dad. He's going to go kill his own dad so that he could be king instead. David, his father, found out about this. And so David got his army together to go fight against Absalom's army so that he could protect himself. Now, before David sent out his army to fight that battle, he did one really important thing that we need to remember. David took the commander of his army, a man named Joab. He took Joab aside and he said to him, "Look, Joab, I want you to win this battle, but you must not hurt my son. You must not kill my son Absalom." And those are his instructions. He was very clear about it. And so Joab and David's army go out to fight against Absalom and his army. And the two armies meet, and it's a horrible battle. All kinds of people are dying. And at one point in the battle, Joab sees Absalom. And do you know what Joab did? Joab went and killed Absalom on purpose. The very thing David told him he must not do. But you see, Joab did it because Absalom was a traitor and Absalom was trying to kill David. And so Joab was doing it to protect David, and because Absalom had no love for his father and frankly probably deserved it. And so Joab killed Absalom. And then anyways, the rest of the story is that they win the battle after Absalom dies, and they come back, and David should be really happy because his side won, but instead he finds out his son died, and he starts weeping and he starts crying because his son died. And then Joab, his commander, has to come to David and tell him not to cry, because if he does, all his armies are going to become so discouraged and feel so unappreciated that they're going to abandon David as king. And that's the story. Now, what do you think about that story? That's pretty weird, right? There's a lot, that's not something you'd see in a lot of movies, right? And I don't know about you, but at the end of the story, it seems really unsatisfying, right? It doesn't seem like a very good ending to the story. And we'll talk more about that in a second, but for now, here's the question I want all of us to think about. The question is this: in the story, who was right? Was David right, or was Joab right? David didn't want his son to die, even though he was a traitor, even though he was trying to kill him. David wanted his son to be protected. So was David right? Or was Joab right, who killed Absalom in order to protect his king, and who killed someone who was a traitor, who didn't love his father, and who's going to keep trying to kill his father, and so he's protecting David? Who was right? Was it David or was it Joab? And now I want you guys to pause the video and talk about it with your teacher. Maybe take a vote with your hands or with your feet, go to different sides of the room about who you think was right. Was Joab right or was David right? All right? So talk about it and see you in a few seconds. All right. So guys, who was right? Was it Joab or was it David? Well, I got to admit, it's actually kind of a trick question, because in some ways, both of them are right. And in some ways, both of them are wrong. You see, Joab and David actually represent two different things. David represents mercy. Joab represents justice, or fairness is another word for it. And you see, both of them are right. Both of those are good things. You see, maybe you said you think David was right because he was merciful. And, that's good because we all need mercy, right? Let's imagine that you had an assignment due, and normally you get your assignments done, but then just all this crazy stuff happened, and then the stuff with your family went on, and you didn't get a chance to get it done. You showed up to school. You see, justice, fairness would say you deserve to get a 0 on that assignment, but mercy would be, no, I'll give you another chance to do it. And see, we all make mistakes. We all need mercy. And so maybe we think, well, no, David was right. Mercy is right. But think about it this way. Maybe you said Joab was right because we need to be fair, right? Because think about this. What if somebody stole your lunch and you went and you told your teacher, this classmate of mine, they stole my lunch, and your teacher said, oh, really? Well, that's too bad. But I want to be merciful to that student who stole your lunch, and so I'm not going to punish them, and I'm not going to make them give your lunch back. Now, they may have been merciful, but was that fair? No, that wasn't fair at all, right? And so you see there's a tension between which is right. Is mercy right, or is justice, is fairness right? And that's what creates the tension in this story. In some ways, David is right. In some ways, Joab is right. And that's what makes it so hard to know. Now, I want to ask one more question, all right? First, I asked you, who do you think was right? Now, here's my question this time, and I want you to take just a few seconds to think about it. Who do you think you are in the story? Who do you think you are in the story? So just take a few minutes and think about it, okay? Or 30 seconds. Think about it. Okay, so guys, who do you think you are in the story? When I think about it, there's been different times, but I think right now, when I'm thinking about it, I'm leaning towards David, that I lean more towards mercy, that's right. That's what we need to do rather than fairness. So I don't know who you chose, Joab or David. But you see, here's the plot twist. As we read the rest of the Bible and God keeps showing us more things, the plot twist he gives is that we actually are neither Joab or David. You know who we are? We're Absalom. We're the son who rebelled. See, God is our Father. He's the King. But when we break his commands, when we sin, whether that be lying or stealing or disobeying our parents or talking about someone really bad things behind their back or even saying it to their face and embarrassing them in front of everybody, when we sin in those ways, we break the commandments of the king. And really what we're doing is saying, God shouldn't be king, I should be king instead, just like Absalom said. And so now here's and so we're Absalom. And so actually Joab and David, what they represent is two different parts of God. See, in God, there's both justice, fairness, and there's also mercy. And you see, when we sin against God, there's a part of him, there's the justice who says, no, they must be punished, they must die because they sinned. That's the Joab part. But there's also the mercy part that says, but I don't want them to die. I want them to be saved. That's the David part. And now here's the question. Which one of those wins? The justice or the mercy? Well, here's the amazing thing about the story of the Bible. Both win. On the cross, when Jesus died, he took our place. He was a representative. See, the justice, the fairness of God said, no, their sin must be punished. They have to die because they tried to take my throne from me. But Jesus took that penalty. God killed him instead of us. But so you see, when he did that, God's justice, his fairness was met because the penalty was paid. But God's mercy was also there because we didn't die for our sins. Jesus died for us. And so you see, instead of having this tension with one another, oh, justice or mercy, instead, justice and mercy on the cross come together like two friends, smiling face to face. And there's finally a resolution to the end of the story. You guys, that is what God did for you. He had to be just. He had to be fair. But he wanted to show mercy. And so he sent his son to die in your place so that you can live forever. So guys, it's been so good to be with you today. God bless you, and hope you have a great rest of your week.